for me, being able to look at our city from a perspective of, what is next? What's the growth? Where are things happening in our city? And I see some things are holding us back. The affordability of our city, the fact that, a lot of young people, even in this very neighborhood, are doubtful of whether or not they can continue to live here because they simply cannot afford it. I see the homelessness. It's so visible on our streets. We're housing young people and older adults in hotels temporarily because we don't have shelter for them. And that's a problem.
MPP at Queen's Park, Cabinet Minister, CEO of Civic Action, CAO of the Toronto Community Housing Corporation. That's a lot on your resume. I wanted to go through each of those positions with you. What would you say one key accomplishment is from each of those positions?
Sure, and what I also want to say to the people of Toronto, if they're looking for a mayor who brings a broad scope of experience, then that's me, because I have worked in business. I talked about Bell Canada. I talked about, what I've done there from a business perspective. Toronto Housing, it really is about the affordable nature of supportive housing, and the fact is that we don't have enough of it. We have so many people who are on wait lists, but the housing that we do have, we have to make sure it's in a good state of repair and that we maintain those units of housing. So my contribution to TCHC really was about putting together a 3-year strategic plan for the organization and making sure we acknowledged the need for greater funding. When I was there back in 2008, there was no government, not even at the city level, that was funding the repairs and the need to keep the housing units in a good state of repair. So that's what I had to do, was to really create that plan and that forward look that this is housing that we have to preserve and protect, and it requires investments.
You obviously had time as part of the government, also as a member of the opposition. So what would you say you were able to take away from that?
As Minister of Education, honor of my life, for sure. Being the first, woman of color to be Minister of Education, and to really look at it from that perspective. I was able to bring in place the Education Equity Action Plan as a response to the fact that, some students were not faring as well in our school system. And what I said was that it's a system that has to change to support them. Nothing wrong with our students. And I was able to put that in place. A secretariat is now there, continuing to deal with the challenges, for Black students, LGBTQ students, students with disabilities, Indigenous students. All students need the opportunity to learn and to succeed. And as minister, I was able to do that.
There are other people in this campaign that are in the running that have been tied to John Tory and his time as mayor. When you were CEO at Civic Action, as it happens, he was chair of Civic Action. Was there any influence on his part to your position when you were there?
Yeah, I've known John Tory for many years. We served on the board of the United Way together of Toronto, and of course I've been involved in Civic Action since its inception. It's actually celebrating 20 years right now. John Tory was there, I was there from the beginning. I eventually became the CEO while he was the chairman, and together we worked on some really great projects like Toronto Global. We don't talk about that a lot, but that's about bringing new companies here and helping our companies to expand abroad. And that creates jobs. It creates a thriving Toronto and Toronto region, which is really so important as the economic engine of Canada.
You've come forward with a pretty bold plan to create this Toronto Community Housing Corporation. Maybe just let's go over it a little bit. The idea that you want to create this department division unto itself is a bit unique.
What my focus is, it's doing things differently. I have experience and I background in affordable housing. I understand the need for a spectrum of housing. In fact, I started with the most urgent, which was the supportive housing units, the 2,000 units that were needed right now so people don't sleep on our streets, in our parks, on our transit system. We need that wraparound care for mental health, addictions, and substance abuse to get people securely and safely housed. At the same time, we don't have enough affordable housing. And so this is the solution to that. We need to fix housing, and my plan for the Toronto for Affordable Housing Corporation, TAHC, is to start building housing on the land that the city already owns. So on day one, I will say there's no more surplus land owned by the city. It's all available for affordable housing, and let's start building that.
How plausible is it that 22,700 units can be built over the course of the next 6 years, and how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, you know, I have a housing background, so I have expertise in affordable housing, actually, RGI, rent geared to income housing, supportive housing. So I understand the full spectrum of need that we have. This is quite unique, because what I'm looking at here, and it's the innovation I bring from my own background, is standardization.
Obviously, much has been discussed about a $1 billion hole in the budget at this point.
It's a mess.
How do you fix the problem with the budget just within the city without that extra help?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that's I'm trying to sort out here. First of all, it hasn't worked. So, you know, last year we're still waiting for the province to kick in a portion, and both the feds and the province gave Toronto nothing this year. I believe the province did give $48 million for supportive housing, which is really important, and we welcome that, but it's not nearly enough to close that $1.1 billion hole in the budget. So what that tells me is that, you know, we have to accept that reality, but we don't have to give up. I will be the city's top chief negotiator to make sure we get our fair share from the province. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. We can't just wish and hope, and worse, beg the other orders of government to fix Toronto's challenge. We have to get going ourselves, and that's what I want to do. So in terms of my 3 and 6 property tax, it is really addressed to meet the priorities that I've set out in my plan.
How do you go about raising taxes without raising taxes for some?
It's in the range of the current 5.5. So it's a 6% property tax increase. I'm being very transparent as we move into the voting for this election. And I'm saying to people, in order to get the things that we want to fix the 6, to fix housing, fix transit, fix services like potholes and snow clearing, that we do need revenues in our city. And that's at 6% for homeowners. I also recognize that affordability is a challenge for people. You know, they can't put food on the table. Food bank use is up. You know, that's the reality. And so for those households who make $80,000 or less, it's going to be 3% increase. So less than inflation, gives people just a little bit more room. It's actually $108 a year on average that we're going to ask people to pay who make less than $80,000. And for those over that, it's $216 a year.
The idea of mental health supports, community services, things of that nature, what you want to be able to accomplish with those things doesn't necessarily happen overnight. That takes time to be able to implement those things and to make sure that they have some sort of effect. What can you do in the short term to make sure that people do feel safe and that there are things that are done in order to make that happen?
Yeah. I'm really motivated around this notion of a chief mental health officer having a mental health strategy for a city, simply because as an MPP, I worked very hard on the response to COVID and making sure that we got, you know, that we survived it, frankly. That was really the goal. Coming out of it, though, after people have been in lockdowns, we actually see a rise and an increase in mental health issues in our city. What are we doing about it? It's not a city responsibility, it's a provincial responsibility. But the people who live here, so we have to care about how they're doing. You know, a majority, and so many people in our city are alone. They live alone, or they're lone parents. And that pressure coming out of a pandemic, we've got to address that.
You played right into it, the relationship with the province, and Doug Ford specifically. You've spent your time there, you've been face to face with him, you've said things about his work and everything that he's brought up that haven't necessarily been in favor. How do you work with Doug Ford in the province when you've been in that opposing role?
Yeah, and You know, I don't need to be buddies with Doug Ford, but we need to respect each other and our roles and our responsibilities, and I believe that that is something that will happen. You know, I've been in opposition, I've gone toe to toe, and it's well documented, you know, some of the battles that we've had. And, you know, I want to make sure that Toronto always has an advocate and is treated fairly and justly by the province. And even when, you know, Doug Ford, you know, may put his big foot and step in areas that he ought not, that, hey, I can call him out on that and I can hold him to account. And that's going to be my role as mayor of this city, is always to champion. But there are also ways that we can work together. We've done that on transit.
I'm going to wrap things up with the question that not many candidates in any election want to talk about, because the only poll that matters is the one on election day. However, all the polls to this point have had you between 7 and 10% of people that are decided or are leaning in your direction. How do you overcome those that have been polling higher than you?
I am an overcomer. I have run in 4 straight provincial elections. The last 2 were very, very tough. I won Scarborough-Guildwood in 2018 with 74 votes. And of course, in 2022, with over 50% of the vote, brought all of that back by working hard every day, going out there, meeting people, talking to them, and really motivating people to go and vote. If you care about this city, if you care about your kids and being able to, you know, have a life here the way that you did, it's time to vote. I want to bring the whole city together. People in Scarborough, in Etobicoke, in North York, Midtown, downtown, East York, and all of our beautiful neighborhoods that are in between. You want a greater say at City Hall, then I'm your person, because I understand the plans and the ideas I've put forward in my plan are based on listening to people and on my experience. And so that's what I'm offering. A new solution, fresh set of eyes, and the change that I believe that the city needs. And we can fix the 6. We can fix it together.
Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.